Hello, hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis by Raven. I'm your host, Lewis by Raven, 29-year veteran writer, illustrator, and editor of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And today is October 10th, 2021, day 10 of Booktober. We're doing a book review every day throughout the month of October. Some days will actually be multiple books, but today is one book a day. And we're talking about a new book that just recently came out over summer. Suburban Dicks by the writer Fabian Nicieza, best known as a comics writer for Marvel and DC, and probably best known for being co-creator of the popular character Deadpool with Rob Liefeld. And there's his book, Suburban Dicks, hardcover edition, $27. Publisher is G.P. Putnam's and Sons, Penguin and Random House. Putnam Sons is the actual publisher. Penguin and Random House are like the parent companies. The writer, of course, is Fabian Nicieza. The cover is by Jim Tierney. Genre is mystery, thriller, humorous fiction. It was released back in June of 2021, so it's been out for a few months, but still relatively new. This is Mr. Nicieza's first novel. Well, it's about Andrea Stern, a former FBI profiler, gave up her career to raise her 4, soon-to-be 5, children in West Windsor, New Jersey. But one day, between soccer games, recitals, and trips to the local pool, a very pregnant Andy, that's her nickname, I tend to prefer to call her Andrea, she pulls into a gas station and she stumbles across a murder scene. An attendant has been killed, and the bumbling local cops are in way over their heads. Suddenly, Andy is obsessed with this case, and back on the trail of a killer, this time with kids in tow. Soon, she crosses paths with disgraced local journalist Kenneth Lee, who also has everything to prove in solving the case. Pairing up, the duo uncover simmering racial tensions and a decades-old conspiracy involving racist tensions and other unsavory goings-on in their suburban town, particularly directed at Indian, not Native American Indians, and Islamic peoples. Stern and Lee have different reasons for investigating this crime. Andrea, as I just said, I prefer her full name rather than the nickname, is very much in her element as a profiler, and it's about justice for her, while Kenny is basically a disgraced journalist that is looking to break a major story in order to redeem his floundering career. That gives us a little bit of skewed perspective for each one of them as to their own personal agendas into being involved in this. After some unusual and suspicious events take place that Andrea feels might be the result of racism, she and Kenny uncover a part of a skeleton from years ago that might have ties to the fresh murder of the gas attendant, and uncover this decades-long conspiracy and cover up that delves into racial tensions of the past and present. It's very much Castle meets Profiler meets Scarecrow and Mrs. King. I don't know if you guys remember Scarecrow and Mrs. King from the 80s, but you should remember Castle. Some of you should remember Profiler, but Scarecrow might be a little bit too far back for some of you who watch the show. I don't know. There's a lot of sarcasm. Yes, I spelled that right. The sarcasm is so biting and sharp that it'll leave scars on your psyche. Pardon the pun, if you will. I thought it was appropriate. I got this book out of mild curiosity, since this is Nicieza's first novel. Obviously, viewers of this channel and comics fans will recognize him as the co-creator of Daredevil and writer of various comic series, most notably the X-Books New Warriors franchises for Marvel in the 90s and 2000s. I think he also wrote Thunderbolts for Marvel. He worked for Valiant as well, among other successful endeavors. Nicieza's plot has depth and enough twists and turns in it for it to be interesting, and Andrea Stern is an engaging character, albeit one sometimes I have a hard time believing in, mostly because she drops enough F-bombs to reenact the damage of Hiroshima, which is not really what I expect from a mother of four and number 5 about to pop out at any moment. It seems to me that such a woman might curb the pointed tongue around her kids a little bit more, but that's just, me, I guess. And there are way too many scenes where the authorities allow her and the kids to be, where in real life it would never happen. But that's just me kind of being nitpicky, maybe, because it's really not that much different than, say, how all the police always seem to let Jessica Fletcher investigate stuff, even though why would they in real life? She's a private citizen. Jessica Fletcher meaning Murder, She Wrote, for those who don't recognize the reference there. But it does get addressed somewhat, and she does generally get relegated to the sidelines some. Kenneth does the field work, which honestly is more realistic to the nature of what would actually happen. Andrea's husband is also way too supportive in allowing her to go to crime scenes and confront suspects while he comes home from work early to take care of the kids. So little things like that kind of took me out of the story a little bit, as being not entirely realistic to my mind's eye. But again, it's not egregious. It's just kind of, I can see it going on. It's TV reality level, I guess you could say. Nicieza does capture some more of the devious introspective elements of racial discriminations accurately, even justifies, if I use that word loosely in quotations, some of the behaviors. In other words, he rationalizes it so that you can understand why a person thinks the way they do or behaves the way they do, even if you do not agree with that perspective. And this is important. People in America do not know how to understand, or they refuse to understand, perspectives that they themselves do not agree with or abide by. He does a fairly decent job of doing that. And again, you don't have to agree with the characters, you don't have to like the characters, but their perspectives are understood. A lot of times, writers, whether this is books or television, they make it kind of cartoony, one-dimensional, and these have some depth and meat on the bones, if you will. And this lack of this is a problem in America where we don't know how, or we refuse to understand other people's perspectives, is evidenced daily on social media platforms. And all too often that lack of willingness to understand while claiming that that you do, no, you don't. If you understand why someone believes the way they do, you should be able to explain their perspective in a way that they can relate to, instead of constantly dissecting their argument and to try and prove them wrong and having both sides feel that they're not being heard. And that's what's basically what happens with most people online. So the author seems to have a pretty loose grip and a firm understanding, but a loose grip on this point. And what I mean by that is he does have lapses in logic between characters, but that may be intentional because a character's perspective is not necessarily an author's perspective. This is another lesson that viewers of my show and readers should learn when reading and analyzing stories, whether it's comics, novels, TV shows, whatever. He's deliberately going for the laughs, and some of that laughter is uncomfortable laughter. It's ugly laughter. You're supposed to be uncomfortable, even though it's funny. And the interplay between Andrea and Kenny is, as I said, sort of reminiscent of that of Kate Beckett and Richard Castle from the popular TV series Castle, or that of Lee Stetson and Amanda King from the 1980s television series Scarecrow and Mrs. King. The very ending of the book is a little bit of gross out humor as well, kind of, sort of. Um, but I'm not going to spoil that for you. I mean, you need to read that for yourself. For a first novel, it's pretty respectable. Now, I realize that might seem like a jaded bit of a comment. After all, the author has been writing and editing comics for decades, but there are different structures and elements of writing between prose and comic scripting, and not every writer becomes strong enough for both. And I think that audiences, especially today's kind of short fused, judgmental uh, fandoms, they tend to not even give a chance for a writer to become uh, comfortable in their own skin, as it were. And on these different platforms, they just attack. So it is not surprising that even with nearly 35 years in the comic scene, as a writer, we're only just now seeing his first novel. Sometimes it takes that long to find both the confidence in your own work and also to find the right people who also have confidence in your work to support it. The book has done well enough that a sequel is already scheduled for June 2022. Now, I don't know what the deal is that he signed with his publisher, but I would expect a trilogy or maybe even more as long as the sales are there. As many author contracted publishers like Putnam Random House are typically a 3-book deal minimum. Now, I'm sure that fans of Fabian's comics work will also enjoy this work. If you're not a fan of Fabian Nicieza's comics, I would advise not bothering. Um, just because, you know, it's what he does in comics, but it's actually turned up and a few notches on the dial. You know, it's not an 11 like Spinal Tap, but it's like if his sarcasm and his social commentary in comics is a 6, this is dialed up to an 8.5 or a 9 pretty easily. Now, Nicieza is kind of hit and miss with me on his comics. Loved his New Warriors run. Also liked his Thunderbolts run. But I'm not as much of a fan of his X-Book stuff. Some of the other stuff I've read by him doesn't always sit well with me. But that doesn't mean he's doing a bad job. It's just certain things just don't click. Like the X-Men, you know, he came in right after Claremont, and no one's replacing Claremont for me. Sorry. So for me, this book was something of a mixed bag. I totally get it. I think the book is quite well executed for what it is. The characters are likable enough and quirky enough to potentially grab a reader. They just didn't quite grab me. It's I felt a little bit of detachment from the characters. Didn't quite get completely immersed in the story, and I think that has to do with some of the similarities to the characters and couple characters that couples like Beckett and Castle and Stetson and King. I guess my recognition of that same trope left me being comparative to those type of relationships, and and that took me a little bit out of the story a little bit. And again, like I said, some of the relationship, like her relationship with her husband, was just a little bit overly supportive for me. I think that's where it kind of just took me out of the story a little bit. The story is recommended for ages 16 and up. There is adult language. There are triggering scenes throughout the book, whether it's physical description, written description of bodies, or whether it's some of the other descriptions of like Andrea's pregnancy and what she's feeling emotionally and physically at the time, or whatever. I give it 3.5 stars. Certainly quality debut work. And that is our review for Suburban Dicks for October 10th. Now, tomorrow's book is going to be, as you see, I have an asterisk by that. It's a 5-book mega review. I'll be reviewing Immortal Hulk volumes 1 through 5. It says date and time to be decided because it might not actually air tomorrow. I do have some house reconstruction stuff going on tomorrow, and even though they're coming way early in the morning, way too early for me, they'll be here at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning to start work on it. They're repairing and replacing sliding glass door. Depending on how long it takes them, I might not be doing this until Tuesday. But if I end up doing Tuesday, then I'll do the Hulk's review, and then I'll do the next book as review on Tuesday for 2 different videos on the same day. And I definitely won't be able to do my other Monday review at all, unfortunately, tomorrow. But we'll do what we can, depending on what's available time-wise for however long it takes me to do the work. Okay? This week, moving forward on Quoth the Raven, again, tomorrow is to be determined. Tuesday is Booktober, possibly both the 11th and the 12th day episodes. We'll see. Wednesday will be a Booktober episode. Thursday, we will have Booktober and What Did You Get comics reviews for the week. I know that we'll be reviewing Impossible Jones 2 by Carl Kiesel and David Hahn. And because I just got that in the mail during that episode, and I don't remember exactly what else we're reviewing off the top of my head, but there's at least 2 more books. Friday is Booktober. We may also have Drew Morrison, I think might be on Friday as well, but I haven't written that down because it's not actually confirmed yet. Drew Morrison did, Tomorrowland. And we had him on the show before, but his new issue, his new Kickstarter has started, so we'll talk about that. And then Saturday we'll have Booktober, and Saturday TV Talk we'll be reviewing Stranger Things seasons 1 and 2. So that's pretty much it for today, folks. If you liked the video, or you think others might, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons on this YouTube channel to continue to get support from get content from this channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you have any reason you might want to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRave2. You can see some more of my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You're watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightman exclusively on YouTube. And if you have questions that you want to ask me, like an email that you want me to have answered on the show, or you want to commission artwork from me, the best place to try to reach me is quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com. And if for some reason I don't get back to you, you can always try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. That's all for now, folks. We'll see you next time. Have a good day and a good week.